Okay, welcome back after that visual literacy activity. We're now going to move on to the visual literacy design principles, which are also discussed in the pre-reading material. So starting off with a question, which of the following are the principles of visual literacy design? So there are a few in here which are not principles of visual literacy design, and you've got to identify which ones are not. Is it A, emphasis, B, beautiful, C, movement, D, variety, E, simplicity, F, proportion, G, rhythm, H, unity, I, considered, J, harmony, or K, balance? I'm going to give you a few seconds to pause the video, otherwise I'm going to move on to the answer. So the answer is, of course, beautiful, simplicity, and considered are all not principles of visual literacy design. So the 8 principles of visual literacy are emphasis, variety, rhythm, harmony, movement, proportion, unity, and balance. So let's see how we can incorporate these principles into our dashboard designs. Now, I quite like looking at real-world interactive dashboards. So for this, we're going to go through the example of the Met Office's weather dashboard. In this case, I've just chosen the location of Swindon, but it doesn't matter which location you choose, it all looks the same. So let's go through these principles and see how they've applied them to their dashboard. Starting with emphasis. Okay, so how have they used emphasis in this dashboard? Well, if we look at the top left-hand corner, we can see that they've used emphasis to really highlight today's weather. So they've given a larger image, larger text, slightly bold text in places, as well as making the box containing it a lot bigger. This really draws the eye to the top left corner. Balance. We've got sort of two sections here. We've got the one which leads along the top, almost like a nav bar of days of the week, and then we've got today broken down into time slots. And you can see that each time slot and each day, actually, they're really quite balanced. They're very well structured. They're the same size. There's no overwhelming push towards one side of the screen. We do have the emphasis in the top left, but it really doesn't distract from the rest of the dashboard. We then have harmony. Most segments contain similarly shaped components. So we're looking at the sort of throughout the day, the time slots in the middle there. We can see that they tell quite a nice story, right? They're very similarly shaped. They're the same size. There's nothing contained in one that's not contained in the other. They've got the time slots and they flow very nicely. The same to be said with the days on top. It gives you a highlight of each day, and each day contains a picture, two numbers, and the date. Moving on to variety, we can see that they've used a variety of icons and different styles of showing data. So for example, we've got these cloud pictures which show how cloudy it will be, how sunny it will be, whether it will be raining, how dark it will be, so we've got the crescent moon out. We also have these wind symbols down at the bottom, which show direction and speed of wind. It's not all textual based, it's very... they've used a lot of different sort of typographics here, different icons to show different things, rather than just having a table of data. Moving on to movement, we can tell that there's a story which flows through this dashboard. We know we're starting from the left-hand side, even if we don't have to think about it, right? You start from the left and you read across to the right, the same with the days on top. So we go from 12 o'clock in the middle to 5 o'clock in the morning, and it tells a nice story. It flows from left to right, which makes it easier to read when you're considering, looking at how the day's going to be. You're more than likely start on the left and go through, rather than start on the right and go backwards. The next one then is proportion. So looking at the proportion of elements, and here we see that similarly to emphasis, slightly bigger, larger icons and text in that sort of top left emphasized box, but the proportion for all of the harmonious elements there, so the big block in the middle and the days on top, are very much the same. They're much smaller. They're continuous. They're the same throughout. But also they are, I guess, as I just said, they are smaller than that emphasized block, which really helps bring out that emphasis on today's weather as an overarching theme. Next one is rhythm. Rhythm we've kind of spoken about already, but these repetitive blocks help to guide your eye through the story as it goes from left to right. They're the same and they're consistent, which really helps when someone's looking at a story like this. We then have unity, which is everything is just sitting together in a consistent and uncluttered manner, right? There's nothing on here I didn't ask for when I wanted to check out the weather. Okay, there may be some extra information, but it's not cluttered. It's not just tables and tables of information, right? I have the emphasized today's weather, I have the next days in a general overview fashion here, and then I've got a breakdown of today's weather. Within that, again, it's not just text, it's not just numbers. There are also icons and typography, which helps me as the reader, I guess, the reader, the looker, the reader, to break this down and find out what it is I actually need. So it's conveying the message to me without actually knowing what my question might be. So now we're going to move on to visual literacy activity part 2. I will see you again in about 5 to 10 minutes.